I'm a forgiveness teacher. I mean, that's what my renowned work at Stanford is. I run something called the Stanford Forgiveness Project for 20 plus years. And one of the things that I recognized when I started teaching forgiveness was I simply took a piece of the meditation practice that I had for 20 years and recognized that unforgiveness is simply a response of the nervous system to threat. And that when the threat comes from your own head, it doesn't matter. Like the threat could be, somebody's really frightening you, or you could remember a parent who was unkind to you. It's all the same threat, and your body responds to threat. And the body responds to threat with anxiety and anger. And those are the pathways. And we're all, and this is what I tell the young people, and this is what I'm sitting here trying to explain a little bit, is almost none of us really understand the degree to which, if our mind is left unchecked, how much anxiety and anger dominate it. And one of the things that we're doing when I sit to meditate, or when you come to something like this, or do whatever practice it is, you're working on just a little bit with each practice, and it's glacial, the progress. It is. It's like, you're trying to help your brain deepen, this is anthropomorphizing, deepen the grooves of positive emotion, of calmness, because the brain's default patterning is anxiety. That none of us, again, the yogis who figured this out 3,000 years ago, they didn't have access to the, watching impulses in the nervous system, and they had no idea that the sympathetic and the parasympathetic branches came together an inch below your navel. But they all figured out that this is where you bring your attention when you breathe, and all the martial arts figured this out. But they weren't able to say, the patterning of the sympathetic fibers and the patterning of the parasympathetic fibers, they're this far apart right here, so they can easily communicate with each other. They didn't get that about deep abdominal breathing, but they didn't have to. They did it empirically. They figured it out on themselves. The other thing that they couldn't have known, and this is, again, some degree of anthropomorphizing, but in evolutionary psychology, the expression is, we all descended from anxious apes. The chill apes were toast. You know what I mean? If you were a chill ape, somebody took your bananas or something, and if you were like this all day, well, you were done. So the most anxious apes became us. And you have to recognize the depth to which that's true. And yoga is one of the practices that arises naturally in human evolution to help us move past that incredibly primitive programming of being an anxious ape. That's what this is about. It's not, the pictures on the wall are fine and the guru is fine, but those are all minor, accoutrements to a deep universal need and truth for human beings to continue this evolution. And if we don't consciously work to continue this evolution, the pull of being that anxious ape is profound. It's just profound. In your brain and nervous system, the pathways for threat are so well, like, set out. It's like, you know, there's a pathway for threat that's like an 8-lane superhighway in your brain. And there's a pathway for joy that's like this little rutted dirt road, you know, like the road leading here. No, seriously, that's the pathway to joy in your brain, and 80 is the road for threat and danger and anxiety and self-protection. This is how you're wired. This is how I'm wired. If we simply pay attention to that wiring without working on ourselves, then we create the world that we've created as it exists now. One of very little generosity, one of very little cooperation, one of very modest compassion and kindness. It's one dominated by threat. It's one dominated by, let me just grab as much as I can for myself because I'm scared out of my gourd all the time. Well, it's true. Why else would we over-accumulate as a species all over the place if we weren't terrified? I mean, you know, again, I've had a meditation practice for 40 years. I mean, almost anybody who does that will tell you that they're still beginning. Right? I mean, this is working against or working with to soften the body that we all have been given that hasn't evolved that much past its most primitive urges. And so we practice to help that body move along, you know, to help it grow and unfold. But I have long thought, I mean, the humor of, in the I'm just making this up, I don't remember the exact dates, but the 1970s, in the United States of America, the average home was, I'm going to say 1,400 square feet that was built. Now it's 2,300 square feet. We didn't all of a sudden decide that, oh, we need 900 square feet. We can never have enough external to make us feel safe. And we're desperately trying to do that. Desperately. With more possessions, more titles, more accumulation, more this, more that. But it doesn't calm the anxious mind. What you're doing and what yoga is designed to is calm the anxious mind, to quiet it. So that when the anxious mind is quieted, even for a moment, the other parts of the brain come into play. That as long as we're anxious and motivated by adrenaline, which is what anxiety produces, we can't have experiences of deep compassion. It's impossible neurologically. You can't, from your guts, forgive somebody because the adrenaline and the threat keeps on recycling itself.